In this video, we will be talking about the science behind Aquaman. Aquaman is a superhero who has many amazing powers, which includes communicating with animals, being able to withstand deep pressures underwater, and being able to breathe underwater, as well as swim extremely fast.
Aquaman is capable of breathing underwater, but his body is also capable of other great things underwater. He's not only superhuman, but also has impenetrable skin. During the film, he is able to dive down to the great depths of the ocean. An average human can dive about 130 feet, whereas Aquaman dives to an astonishing 36,000 feet when he goes deep into the trench. At this point, his body is taking more than 8 tons per square inch, or 15,000 psi. This is equivalent to having 50 jumbo jets piled on top of you. It would be crushing to a normal human. A normal human, whereas, can also take 72 psi before their body begins to get crushed. Aquaman's physique is truly remarkable, as he is able to withstand such great forces acting upon his body.
Many of Aquaman's superpowers emerge from biological processes. These include his genetic composition, ability to communicate with aquatic life, adjusting to the underwater environment, and staying underwater for long periods of time. We perceive Aquaman as one with unique, formidable superpowers and diverse qualities. In fact, he is known to be the bridge between the land and the sea. In the movie, we learn that Aquaman's mother is Atlantean and his father is a lighthouse keeper, thus a human being. He has a unique combination of both Atlantean and regular human genes. When Aquaman spends his time underwater, he is able to communicate with the marine life. We imagine Aquaman as being capable of some type of telepathic power. His communication process is very similar to that of whales and dolphins, which use echolocation. Echolocation is a form of communication that marine mammals use through a sonar, sending out a call over a distance and hearing the reverberating echoes from proximities. Aquaman uses sonar as a communication tool and echolocation to communicate with aquatic life. Dr. Winston Lancaster, assistant professor at the University of Alabama's Department of Biology, suggests that whales and dolphins are capable of hearing low frequencies to communicate amongst themselves. This implies that Aquaman is able to pick up low frequencies underwater too, which is necessary for hearing and comprehending marine mammal messages.
Dr. Lancaster further explains that the ear structure of whales and dolphins contain dense bones, fat, and tissues. This helps lower the amount of vibration that the marine mammals may hear, helping them echolocate and is a guide for direction. Thus, it may be concluded that Aquaman would have to have had a similar ear structure as whales or dolphins to be able to echolocate with marine life successfully. Maintaining equilibrium is important for the working of the cell's transmembrane proteins. Seawater entering the membranes of human cells create hypertonic solutions, meaning that the cells lose water to the external environment. Aquaman's cells initially become hypertonic when the seawater enters his body while swimming underwater, meaning that the cells have lower osmotic pressure than the seawater, causing his cells to shrink. When he spends long periods of time in water, excessive amounts of seawater can enter the cell and create hypotonic solutions, meaning that the amount of water that enters surpasses the water capacity within the cell. Aquaman's cells are able to adjust and maintain an isotonic nature, meaning that the amounts of water entering and exiting the cell are equal, creating equilibrium in the cellular environment. We can assume that Aquaman may have been able to stay underwater for a long time due to the equilibrium he preserves in his body, and by allowing the environment of his cells to become isotonic, which matches the osmotic pressure of the external seawater.
And so now we move on to the computer science discipline. While Aquaman itself has very little connection to computer science, the movie Aquaman, which came out in 2018, utilized computer science to a fairly massive extent. One of the most controversial parts of the movie had to do with the CGI. Interestingly enough, the CGI that was referred to was the hair. Specifically, where critics commented that the hair of the characters was very different based on the character. Prince Orm, the primary villain of the movie, was shown to have a slicked back hair throughout most of the movie. Arthur Curry, or Aquaman's hair, was shown to be swaying back and forth around his head. And Princess Mira's hair was described sarcastically as being more of a mane than true hair. This reflects on the difficulty ILM faced while trying to construct and digitally create hair that would work in the turbulent waters of the deep ocean. Kelvin McIlwain, who worked in the production of Aquaman, noted that the hair of the characters needed to be filmed on a per strand basis, per strand of hair, a painstaking process that required a massive amount of calculations on a computer. This applied also to the filming of scenes where actors just could not pull off the physical feats that were required for the scene. According to McIlwain, these shots required almost 90% of the actor to be recreated with CGI, often leaving only the head at the end. McIlwain also commented on the filming of the Italian village fight scene. He stated that the village was backed up with blue screens, which were used to recreate the whole village digitally. Very little of the village was actually made physically, apart from the roofs, which were terracotta. CGI was also used most heavily in the underwater scenes. Apart from being used for the aforementioned physical feats and the hair, the Atlantean seahorses and the sharks were constructed by ILM. The trench, an aquatic race that Aquaman squares off against throughout the movie, were also recreated using CGI, using the process of performance capture or mocapping, which is an abbreviation of motion capturing. Actors in performance capture suits were used over actual costumes to both get the desired actions and the desired look of an emaciated sea people.
One of Aquaman's most notable features is his physique. Aquaman, in the comics and the movies, is shown to have a muscular and built physique. This can be attributed to his training, and more specifically, his swimming. Swimming is one of the few sports that works almost every single muscle group, allowing for an all-around buildup of muscle. The specific muscles used for swimming are as follows. The latissimus dorsi, also known as the lat, or the middle back muscles. These muscles help Aquaman pull through the water rather than push with his legs. They allow for an extra bit of power while he's swimming. Another very noticeable muscle Aquaman uses are his triceps. These help finish through his pull and add an extra bit of power through the rest of his pull. A very famous muscle, the pectoral muscle, are what makes up a person's chest. Aquaman uses these not only for his immense arm strength, but to help himself stabilize his stroke, which is especially important at the high speeds he is traveling at underwater. Aquaman's core is another extremely important muscle group. These muscles also help stabilize his stroke while providing power to both his arms, his legs, and his back while he is swimming. Finally, the most important leg muscle is the quadriceps. These are the groups of muscles used for kicking, and many swimmers rely on their quadriceps to push themselves through the water quickly. Aquaman, though he doesn't normally kick rapidly, kicks once at the beginning of his swim to push himself through the water at incredibly high speeds.
Just as this video clip shows, we often visualize Aquaman's ability to control sea creatures. However, we also ignore a huge fact. Humans cannot survive at low depths of the ocean, but Aquaman can. The dangers of staying in the cold ocean can be directly connected to the chemistry of thermodynamics. In thermodynamics, heat is a form of energy that is transferred between the objects with the goal of reaching thermal equilibrium. The transfer of heat energy is caused by the collisions of atoms where heat energy is transferred from areas of high atomic motion to areas lower. This heat transformation is relevant to when we think about the relationship between the human's body's temperature to the temperature of the ocean. To put this in perspective, the human body maintains a constant temperature of around 36.8 degrees Celsius. Temperature is a measure of the motion of atoms and molecules, and this motion influences the speed of chemical reactions in the body. At higher temperatures, atoms are more likely to meet and perform a chemical reaction because of this greater amount of motion, which is fairly crucial for living organisms because life depends on metabolism, where chemical reactions take place. This becomes a huge problem when we go into cold bodies of water because water has a high heat capacity and acts like a sponge that draws out heat from our body fairly easily. This drop in body temperature is called hypothermia. When we look at the graph at the left, we can see the decrease in the temperature as we dive deeper in the ocean. This corresponds to the table on the right, where the time of life expectancy in the water decreases as the temperature of the water decreases. These graphs really emphasize the contrast between the survivability of humans and Aquaman in the cold ocean. So how does Aquaman avoid hypothermia? Some possibilities may be that he burns 48,000 calories every day, which would be enough for him to maintain eternal body heat according to marine biologist Andrew Thaler. However, burning this many calories will actually fry his internal organs, assuming that his functions are similar to those of humans. However, a more realistic possibility could be that Aquaman has a countercurrent heat exchange, similar to those of tuna. This process involves warm blood, meaning the colder vessels that are near the skin of the organism. This would allow enough heat when cold and warm blood reach thermal equilibrium. These diagrams of organisms demonstrate the functions of countercurrent heat exchange and how they work to maintain internal heat.